We will begin with an address by Mr. Gates. That will be followed by panelists who would each ask a question to Mr. Gates about what he has said. Then we'll have panel discussion. That will be followed by Q&A from the floor. And finally, Mr. Gates will give his concluding remarks. With that, let me introduce our esteemed speaker today. Mr. Bill Gates is co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. With his wife and co-chair, Mrs. Gates, Ms. Melinda Gates, he leads the foundation's efforts to help reduce global poverty, eliminate the health problems that disproportionately burden the world's poorest people, and improve the quality of public education in the United States. Mr. Gates began his work in global health philanthropy in 1994. In 1997, he and Mrs. Gates created the Gates Library Foundation to equip public libraries in low-income communities in the United States and Canada with computers and internet access. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was established in the year 2000. Mr. Gates grew up in Seattle with his two sisters. His father, William H. Gates Sr., is also a co-chair of the Gates Foundation and a retired attorney. Mr. Gates's late mother, Mary Gates, was a school teacher at University of Washington Regent for 18 years and the first woman to chair the board of United Way International. It is one of the most prominent charities. After graduating from the Lakeside School, Mr. Gates attended Harvard University. He left college in his junior year to focus on creating the business that would become Microsoft, the worldwide leader in business and personal software. In 2008, Mr. Gates stepped away from his full-time role at Microsoft to spend more time on his work with the foundation. He continued as chairman of Microsoft's board of directors until 2014 and remains a board member and technology advisor today. Mr. Gates is also a member of the board of directors of Berkshire Hathaway. In 2015, Bill and Melinda Gates received the Padma Bhushan, one of India's highest civilian awards, for their work to promote global health and development. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to bring Mr. Gates to you as the speaker today. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that kind introduction. Prime Minister Modi, members of the Union Council of Ministers, senior government officials, it's a privilege to be with you here today. I was excited when I received the Prime Minister's invitation to deliver the second talk of the Niti Transforming India lecture series. As the Prime Minister remarked when inaugurating these talks, a long administrative tradition has served India well in many ways. He also noted that we live in an age where change is constant. Drawing on the best of India's democratic tradition while embracing these changes is a powerful opportunity for India. Hopefully, the observations I share today can illuminate some of these big shifts and the implications for India, both challenges and opportunities. I don't have a perfect crystal ball, so consider my thoughts for what they are. The observations of an entrepreneur, engineer, business leader, and now a philanthropist. Prime Minister Modi asked me to speak candidly about the challenges India faces and how technology can enable and accelerate India's transformation. Although I've visited India many times over the last 2 decades, there's no doubt I'm very much a novice when it comes to understanding India. India is an exciting and complex place, perhaps even for the people who live here. So my comments are not dictates, but rather advice from a friend who who wants the best for India. My very first trip here was for Microsoft. I was amazed at the great engineers I met. And at that time, it started a wonderful success where India became a huge contributor in the IT sector. Today, of course, Microsoft has over 6,500 employees here, and our third CEO, Satya Nadella, was born in India.
I've continued to visit India even as I was making the transition from my full-time work to be with the Gates Foundation. In fact, it gave me an opportunity to visit more and to get to more cities.
Not just Bangalore and Hyderabad, but many other cities as well. And I saw so many great opportunities. I saw a commitment that this government has to tackling inequity. One of the first things that our foundation did in India was a partnership called Avahan with the government on HIV prevention. And that was a very complex program because it involved reaching out to people like sex workers and creating communities and encouraging them to practice safe behavior. There was a lot we learned in that program, and in fact it was very successful and over time was handed over to the government. That successful collaboration led to many others, some in different states like Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, and many working at the federal level. Most of the work has been focused on maternal and child health, nutrition, sanitation, financial inclusion, and agriculture, all areas where we see big successes emerging from India. Perhaps the program I feel the most proud of, and India should as well, is the elimination of polio from India. Many people thought this would be the most difficult country in the world to get rid of polio, given the size and the number of kids who move around. But in fact, India did a great job, and it hasn't seen polio for quite some time. And that energized the world's polio eradication program. In fact, we're hopeful that the very last cases of polio will be sometime next year. And then after a 3-year period for certification, it can finally be declared as the second disease to be completely eradicated, joining smallpox. India is a huge priority for our foundation. In fact, we do more grants here than anywhere except in the United States itself. Since 2010, we've granted over $1 billion here in India, and that's a number in the years ahead we expect to see continue to grow. Well, let me now focus on the global trends and what I see in the world. I'm very optimistic about India's future, but every country in the world, including India, is subject to these trends. These are powerful shifts. The first is that the global economy is in flux. The assumption that global trade would continue to grow as a percentage of the world economy no longer appears to be true. In fact, global trade has recently declined somewhat. And so to sustain a country-level growth of 7 to 8%, India will have to both increase its share of global exports and take steps to expand its vast internal market, whether it's inefficiencies, land issues, labor issues, tariff and taxes. There's a lot that can be done. It's fantastic that you took the step to change the GST, but that is just the beginning. Another trend is what's going on in energy. You know, we all realize today that both on a local and global basis, hydrocarbon energy can create problems. Now we need to innovate. Either innovate to make improvements in hydrocarbon energy, both in terms of reducing local and global pollution, and to bring in other forms of energy. This is a super important area for innovation. Then we have the trend of climate change. Of course, that's connected to the world's energy system, and it will have big implications for food security. Given that India has 55 to 60% of its crop area rain-fed, the climate change leading to higher rainfall variability is a huge challenge. It really underscores the need to innovate to have more resilient crops and greater productivity, as well as rationalizing water use. Next, we have the changing burden of disease. India, like many developing nations, faces a twin set of epidemics. First, we still have communicable diseases, but already the rise of diabetes and neurological diseases are creating a burden for your health system. We also have possible surprises in the health area, either a naturally caused or an intentionally caused epidemic, or the problem of antimicrobial resistance. In fact, the Foundation has been doing surveillance recently and seen that this antimicrobial resistance problem is particularly troubling, and only substantial innovation can avoid that problem. Another trend, which I view very positively, is an increase in philanthropy. Now, philanthropy will never be at the scale of government, and it's no substitute for government. But in many ways, philanthropy and its diversity and its creativity can fund pilot programs and innovation that will create models for the government. I've been meeting with philanthropists all over the world, and I'm encouraged by the trends. More and more people who are very successful are giving their money away, and even people of modest wealth are engaging in philanthropy. On Friday, I'll attend an annual meeting of the India Philanthropy Initiative, where a number of families talk about how to do better at philanthropy, how to encourage each other not only to work together but to do even more. India has a great tradition of philanthropy through families like the Tatas, the Birlas, the Bajaj. They've been doing great work for a long time. And more recently, people like the Premjis, the Neelamkanis, the Piramals, and Karim Mazumdar Shah are also doing very creative work. And so philanthropy plays a very exciting role at funding both new research and pilots in a way that's complementary to the government. The last trend is what's going on in the digital arena. Here we have companies like Google and Microsoft and many academic universities rapidly changing artificial intelligence. Computers today can see and understand language as well as human beings. That's a milestone that we only reached in the last few years. And so as devices using that artificial intelligence get created, it will really change the market. Many of the manufacturing jobs that required fairly low skills will be eliminated by the automation that uses those technologies. And so although there still are great lessons to learn from the industrial models that were used in East and Southeast Asia, this model will have to be updated. It'll have to be a higher value added set of approaches, pulling in the best of India's very strong IT sector. It'll be necessary to embrace artificial intelligence and cloud services, even though they will be somewhat disruptive to the job market. The need for retraining and adaptation as this innovation accelerates will be greater than ever. Well, I think it's important to embrace innovation. It is a little daunting to people that the world is changing at a pace unmatched in human history. In many ways, India will have to shape the innovations in the world and come up with its own innovation because it has very unique circumstances. And I want to talk here about ways that I think India can accelerate the amount of innovation taking place in the country. Countries that have strong innovation ecosystems will be best equipped to address not only their own domestic challenges, but to build the products of the future. Science has given us a lot more tools, and not just in the digital realm. We have things like gene editing that allow us, whether it's in human health, animal health, or plant health, to do really amazing things. We have much better medicines coming out of the deep understandings we have in biology. I'm very hopeful. I certainly expect, and our foundation invests a lot in breakthrough vaccines coming out in the next 5 to 10 years. We're hopeful to have a vaccine for malaria, for tuberculosis, for HIV. And these are huge innovations that will change the healthcare market dramatically. Even in an area like sanitation, we're seeing that new technology can change things for the better. And we can use the digital innovation to change delivery. Often when we think about innovation, it's just the magic new tool, the seed or the vaccine. But in fact, digital innovation allows us to track the delivery throughout the entire system to see, is that healthcare worker showing up? Are they doing a good job? We can call the citizen and see what experience they had. And so we're already starting to see digitally driven supply chain, digital dashboards, a system that track what's going on in education in the best way. And India really is building a great foundation for these kinds of tools to take governance to a much higher level of quality. Well, now let me address the key building blocks for India to drive forward this innovative economy. The first, of course, is the incredible labor force you have. You have a large and growing youth population, with over half the population before under 25 and nearly 2/3 under 35. You have world-class universities, not only the IIT institution, IIM, but also an emerging group of private universities. You have an incredible set of talented people, and not just in the IT sector. We see that across many sectors. We see it in biology and engineering. You have a lot to build on. And we see that, in terms of the great businesses that are being built here. This afternoon I got to meet with entrepreneurs working in the health and agricultural sectors, and I was very excited to hear about what they're going to do to improve the quality and productivity in those two areas. Cultivating entrepreneurship is important, and it's been a priority for this country. Prime Minister Modi's Startup India initiative is encouraging entrepreneurs, and we have more venture capital than ever before. And of course, you have the traditional hubs, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Delhi, with a lot going on. But not only those cities, many others are stepping up and creating the kind of environment for new companies. Next, we have what India's done to build a world-class digital foundation. The popularity of the mobile phone, the digital bank accounts that have been created under the PMJDY, flagship financial inclusion scheme, and over 1 billion people enrolled in Aadhaar. Aadhaar is an interesting case. It's something that had never been done by any government before, not even in a rich country, and there were lots of skeptics. Skeptics about the financial viability, the technology, the citizen acceptance. But now you have something that is going to underlie all of your digital systems, whether it's banking, tax payments, tracking healthcare records. It is an incredible asset, and it took a lot of bravery, good government leadership to pull that together. And so when we talk about this JAM platform, that's a real thing, and you're just starting to see what you can do with that in terms of government payments of all types, even being able to track patients and being able to connect the government and the private sector in terms of delivering health interventions, including things like ongoing tuberculosis treatment. The unified payment infrastructure that was launched a few months ago is another key element to make this come together. This shared infrastructure at the core of the payment system really is cutting costs for every provider and encouraging innovation and competition. The bill payment service will make it easier for people to pay utility bills, and that's just the start of full digitization. In fact, it fits very well with the theme of, okay, let's get as many payments as possible into that digital realm. Another great asset are the companies involved in vaccine manufacturing and pharmaceuticals. Our foundation works closely with the Indian vaccine companies because, thank you, because they are world-class. Serum Institute, Bharat Biotech, and Biological E are providing the majority of all the childhood vaccinations used in the world. And in this entire sector, there's huge opportunity. The world needs breakthroughs to solve these diseases, whether it's drugs or vaccines, and we'll need both of those. We've also seen recently as a world that we have to think about epidemics. Ebola and Zika showed up and we didn't have the right tools. And more infectious pathogen, like a form of flu, which is transmitted between humans, would be catastrophic. And so we need to come together and get the technology all over the world to be able to create cures for those epidemic diseases very quickly. And we also need the capacity to make those medicines very rapidly when the problem shows up. A new public-private partnership called the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness has been put together, and India, through DBT, is the first chair of the board and actively shaping the agenda. So it's great to see India stepping up to help out with what is a problem for all of us, to be ready for even an epidemic that would be worse than the last two that even so have caused lots of challenges. Financial inclusion is a very key platform, and it's interesting that banking has only been used by people who have lots of money. And part of that is that the transaction costs have been high enough that small amounts of money, very small transactions, simply haven't worked. The digital realm is where that can get solved. In fact, there are many problems that the digital realm can solve. If we want to give advice to people on saving, we won't be able to do that by having lots and lots of people. Putting it into digital form, having software that can give you advice, will help people manage their finances in a better way. The bold move to demonetize high-value denominations and replace them with new notes with higher security features is an important step to move away from a shadow economy to an even more transparent economy. And digital transactions really, I think, will rise dramatically here. In fact, I think in the next several years, India will become the most digitized economy, not just by size, but by percentage as well. All of the pieces are now coming together. One piece of this that we enjoyed consulting with the government on making sure it comes together in the right way is the pending rollout of payment banks. This, for the first time, really will mean that you have full currency capability on those digital phones. Once you have that digital infrastructure, the whole way you think about government benefits can be done differently. Imagine as an example that when your health system sees the breadwinner in a family become ill, that immediately you understand that you need to make a payment or loan to that family so that they don't miss a meal. Imagine being able to advise a farmer as he's selling his harvest proceeds exactly what he should set aside so that for the next harvest he can buy the best seeds and the fertilizer in order to have high-valued output when the next planting season comes around. Imagine being able to take any excess funds and letting people invest those in mutual funds and other investment products so that individual households can participate in India's growing economy. Imagine being able to have solar units that can be easily turned on and off as you make payments, thus making it easier to extend off-grid solar energy systems into communities no matter where they are. Over time, all of these transactions will create a footprint. And so when you go in for credit, the ability to access your history, that you've paid your utility bills on time, that you've saved up money for your children's education, all of those things in your digital trail, accessed in an appropriate way, will allow the credit market to properly score the risk and therefore loosen up more money for investments, not only in the agriculture sector, but for all the entrepreneurs in the country. Now, this vision of a digital financial platform does require vigilance to make sure that it works well for everyone. We have to make sure that people aren't taking on too much debt. We have to make sure they understand the fees. We have to make sure that our ranking algorithms aren't working in a discriminatory way that doesn't let poor households participate. But all of these things are possible. Once it's in the software realm, once it's transparent, the idea of seeing what's going on, giving appropriate advice to the consumers, all of that will be possible. Well, next, let me talk about education. The digital revolution has not yet changed education, but it will. The idea that young kids can play on a low-cost cell phone, try out their numeric skills, and play games that, even if they don't know it, are helping them with their literacy, that's an exciting vision. The idea that a teacher will have a tablet that will help them know exactly what material they should present, that they can see if their students are doing homework on their cell phones, they can see how well they did with that. We can use their time in a far more effective way. The very best content, the very best lectures in the world can be available to all the students at very low cost. So the idea of educational material being out there on all of these devices is very clear. There are already pioneering efforts like XStep that's trying to build a platform that gets all that material there for very young kids. This is something that not only will there be great work in India, but there'll be a global community trying to bring together educational software. Improving education is kind of a prime boost for the entire economy. And it's kind of stunning how little R&D has been done on education. But finally, by trying out different approaches, some really good software for very young kids all the way up to college students is being created. Software that will do far better than the average lecturer at bringing across the material and helping you out when you're confused. Agriculture, of course, still employs the majority of the Indian workforce. Over the last half-century, India has made amazing progress thanks to the Green Revolution with heroes like M.S. Swaminathan and institutions like the Indian Council of Agricultural Research. But agriculture has big challenges. Growing population, we need to solve malnutrition. As diets shift, we have to have even more output. And as I mentioned earlier, the challenge of climate change. If we stick with the seeds we have today, just a 3 degrees C rise in temperature could cut rice yields by 40%. Wheat would be even worse. And of course, this would be devastating. India would go from being self-sufficient to no longer being self-sufficient. The ability to double farmer income by 22 wouldn't be achievable. Well, the good news is that science, advancing those seeds, changing them to be more heat resistant, changing them in some cases to have natural biofortification. The kind of research that does that is now available. And a lot of this work can be done by foundations and government through the public agricultural research system. There's a lot of great international scientific partners. One of my favorite examples was what was done with rice. And here, scientists in India adopted the Swarna variety so that instead of dying when it got submerged, it could last for up to 17 days. And that new rice variety, which is called Swarna Sub 1, is now being used by millions of smallholder farmers, especially in eastern India. Well, that